All right, this is Jack. This is Mac. Cleo is sitting over there. This is, no, let's not do that. This is our roadmap to success. These dogs have, Mac is very nosy, the German Shepherd. Jack doesn't like to be sniffed. So this was, and they're all three dogs are very anxious. So this was not the best combination as Mac demonstrates. So what we did is we just got back from taking a couple walks. This is the first time they've been in the room together with well, they're on leash but not being sequestered. So basically, as you can see, Mac is much more relaxed now. It's because we've given him a chance to walk with Jack. And don't let Jack on the furniture. Be careful of your finger. Thank you. Here, let's try that again. Come here, buddy. You're gonna stay over here with me for the shot. All right, so I want to go over the steps and the things that we're going to go over to help create a positive association with these dogs for good. You're not helping, buddy. Now, walking them together is going to be something that will help. No. There we go. All right, come here, buddy. Sit. Oh, that's a better energy. All right, so a couple things. We're going to incorporate some rules and boundaries for all the dogs. So one of the rules I suggest is no furniture for 30 days, or as long as these problems are still continuing. At that point, furniture only with permission. I would also like the guardians to start petting the dogs with a purpose. Sit, sit. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to say the command, and then we're going to, when we deliver the reward, in this case our affection, we're just going to say just the command word. I'd like the guardians to also go through and come up with a list of all of their command words, so that we're always saying come or here or whatever the word is, not come here, over here, here boy, whistle, dog's name. We want the dogs to come for a specific command. Come here, buddy. Here. Now, I'd also like the guardians to practice passive training. So every time the dog comes to us, we're going to pet it and say come. Every time it sits on its own, we're going to pet it and say sit. Same thing with down. After we do this enough, I know you're practicing a little avoidance. It's okay. Let's do it like this. Small circles across the chest is a nice calming way for dogs to relax. But the more that we passively train the dogs, we're going to boost their confidence because we're going to give them things that they can do to make us happy. I would like to, another rule would be making the dog sit before we let him out the door. So if I go to the door and say sit, and my buddy Jack here sits, and we open the door immediately as soon as his butt hits the ground. If I go to the door and say sit, and he doesn't sit within 2 or 3 seconds, I walk away from the door. Yeah, I would. I wait a minute or two, and then I walk back to the door, and then I give him another opportunity to comply. And if he doesn't do it within 2 or 3 seconds, then I walk away this time for 2 minutes, next time for 4 minutes, next time for 8 minutes. So each time the dog doesn't comply, it has to wait twice as long before it gets an opportunity to do so again. I'd like the guardians to make sure they're going out of their way to only say a command word once. Whatever the command word is. Sit. Then we can use a gesture or manipulation. Sit. That's kind of a, I don't know what that is. That's a yoga position of some sort. One of the things we were doing is we were using a lot of counter conditioning. So what I would do is I had a treat, and I was letting actually, in this case, Mac chew on it while he was looking at this guy. This creates a positive association, and when you're doing this, that is all my finger. We want to make sure that the dog is not freaking out. So we're going to increase the distance or lower the intensity, however we need to do that. In this case, we're going to do it by increasing the distance. And then just make sure we're feeding the treats. And I would do it with both ways because both these dogs could benefit from a little positive reinforcement. Sit. All right, I showed some exercises that we want to go over. We went through a focus exercise. Now the focus exercise, make sure the first movement, where we raise it, come here, buddy. Sit, focus. And then the second movement, where it's going to be 1 second, 1 second. But eventually, after we've done it maybe a day or two, we're going to 1 second and then 2 seconds for the delivery stage. And we're going to eventually work ourselves up to 20 seconds for the delivery stage. We're going to do this with the dogs in the room where it's quiet and there's not a lot of other things going on. Eventually, we can do it with 2 dogs simultaneously as long as those dogs get along or we have enough distance between them. I'd like to do that exercise at least 3 times a day with about 10 or 12 treats each time for the focus exercise. I also would like all 3 dogs to learn how to stay because it's a great exercise that helps them develop some self-control, which all these dogs need to develop a little bit more self-control, but also it gives them another task which will help boost their confidence level a little bit. For the doors, Once we get the dogs to sit at the door, then the next stage is when we sit at the door, we wait for the dogs to calm down, or we open the door and the dog's not allowed to go out without a release word. Now that's a little bit more challenging, so make sure your dog's completely calm and relaxed before you get to that stage. The main thing for these two, and you could probably drop his leash now, is we're going to get Mac and Jack to walk together. So every time that Mac gets dropped off here, it'd be nice if they can, Jack can meet him outside and they go for at least a minimum walk around the block. But the more walks we get together with these guys, the better. Now when we're walking them, we're using the martingale collars with the special twist of the leash. We're keeping one dog on one side, one dog on the other. We do not let them interact. Don't let either dog walk in front. So the human's in charge, and the dogs are just having a joint experience. At the minimum, we'd like to move just to the end of the block and then up and then back, but ideally we want to go longer and longer, because the more walks we get with these guys, I think the more comfortable they're going to be. Let's see, what else do we want to work on? What else do we go over? We want to use the escalating consequences to disagree. So the first thing was we're going to hiss 1 time per incident. Match the intensity of your hiss to the intensity of the dog's energy. Second thing we do is we stand up abruptly, turn to face the dog. Your authority goes whichever direction your hips and shoulders are pointing. Keep pivoting until the dog is stationary. As soon as the dog is stationary, stands, sits, lies down, we immediately take 1 step back, left foot, right foot. So boom, boom. And then that's a conversation. So make sure you're taking a step back right away as soon as they get stationary. Or if they leave the room completely, we can just go sit back down. You could also sit down instead of taking a step back, but when you sit down, you lose some authority, and the dogs a lot of times are going to come back and do the thing again. The third consequence is we're going to march directly at the dog with intent. I'm not stomping, but I'm moving very briskly towards the dog, and I'm not slowing down. If the dog is still there, I walk into the dog. The dog needs to learn to defer and get out of the human's way. As soon as the dog turns sideways, we stop in place. That's our way of indicating that we know that the dog, or that the dog is communicating that it understands that we disagree with it. And then we go back to the second consequence. We keep on pivoting until the dog is stationary. Then we take a step backwards, or we sit down. The fourth consequence is we're going to put the dog on a leash, step on the leash, in this case, about 2 feet away from the dog's collar. We want to give the dog just enough room to stand or sit, but nothing else. When the dog sits down, we take the foot that's on the leash, because they're going to sit it down as far away, it'll be nice and tense. We're going to slide that foot towards the dog to take the tension off the leash. Once the dog lays down, we're going to lift our foot up off the leash. We do it very subtly so the dog doesn't realize it. I'm not telling the dog to sit or lie down. I'm waiting for the dog to do it on its own accord. Then if a minute or two later the dog starts doing something wrong, as it runs across the room, we can step on the leash and reapply the consequence. If a couple minutes later everything goes great, then we just let the dog, then we take the leash off a couple minutes later. It's not a quid pro quo. Let's see. I think the main thing for these guys is going to be building up more self-control through the focus exercise, teaching them to stay. But if you guys want to work with them individually and teach your dogs more commands that they know, the more confident they are going to be. I'd like to look for commands that required some self-control, like balancing a treat across their nose, waiting for permission to go get a treat that's on the floor, or something like that that requires them to do something first. That will help the dogs develop more self-control, which is going to help with a lot of these problems, right, Katie? All right, now if you forget how to do the counter conditioning or the door exercise or the rules, if you go to dogboundproblems.com, at the top there's going to be a section that's going to be called Dog Training Tips. If you click that, on my right, watching at home will be on your left, there's going to be a search box. Then you can type in counter conditioning. I do that as one word. And there'll be videos from other clients where I've done counter conditioning exercises where you can watch it. I want the guardians, however, to call or text me. I'm always available to my clients after the session. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. So if there is a problem, make sure you call or text me. All right, so that's the roadmap to success for Chloe, Mac, and Jack. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.